Hey Siri. Oh, your name ain't Siri, I'm sorry. Oops. Hey Google. What's the weather?
It's 89 degrees and partly cloudy. Today, it'll be partly cloudy with a forecasted high of 94 and a low of 72. Due to the current humidity, it feels like it's 97.
That's a lot, Siri. Oh, I mean Google. Hey Google. Should black people celebrate?
Sorry, I don't have any information about that.
I didn't even say that. Should black people celebrate 4th of July? Hey Google. Should black people celebrate 4th of July?
Independence Day is the perfect time to break out the grill.
But I didn't ask you that. Hi guys, how you guys doing? It's Synolve again, and we're here for another The Queen Speaks. Well, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Join me on Patreon so that we can keep black media going, so we can keep this going and the conversation going. Be sure to like me on Facebook and join me on Instagram and Twitter as well at Synolve. And take a look and hop on over to my website at synolve.com and join my newsletter so that we can stay connected. Okay? All right. Well, today we're going to talk about a very important subject, and that is, are you really free? Today on Independence Day, and here I am in my July festivities kind of outfit for today. Want to know, are you really free? Well, I pondered that question a lot for myself, and my family and I do not celebrate the 4th of July. We traditionally haven't really celebrated in the whole festivities of the flag waving and all of that. As a family, my grandmother used to say something to me that I didn't understand, and she used to, about 4th of July, and she would always say, I'd always ask her, are we going to celebrate? Are we going to celebrate? And she'd always say, it's just another day. And that was just kind of it. We would barbecue, of course, as a family, or because it was a day off, we'd barbecue. And, a lot of family reunions would be going on. But for the most part, we just did not celebrate this day. And there's some pretty good reasons why. And to be honest with you, the day almost wasn't celebrated. The Declaration of Independence was actually ratified on July the 2nd, but it wasn't until the 4th, until everybody kind of got their act together. And a part of what held this document up in the signing and in people the states coming together as one, where there were southern states who were just like Georgia, who were still in New York, and others who in the north who were holding out, hoping that there could be some agreement that they could come to with the British. Right, a little history. There also was the little known fact that some people were wanted to be included in the document, information about slavery. And and so they weren't really sure, and had to have these conversations about what they would do. And so one of the things was a resolution that Jefferson added. It was a heated debate about King George III, who was kind of pushing for slaves and asking slaves to revolt against the Americans and to join the British to fight against the Americans. And so there was this little known passage, and it was the most heated debate. It says, and it was concerned about a passage about slavery in which Jefferson accused, as I mentioned, King George III of violating the lives and liberty of a distant people who never offended him, captivating and carrying them into slavery into another hemisphere, or to incur miserable death in their transportation thither. In another passage, Jefferson accused the king of encouraging enslaved people to escape and to join forces with the English. Yeah, There's so much about our history that we don't know. So much that we just have not, that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you from the history books. When I'm reading over to the side of my computer's just over there. And we just don't know these things. My grandmother taught me this when I was younger, and so I've never forgotten it. I'm also going to leave a link to this article that I'm reading from. I'm going to leave it in the section description below, so you can check this. I got 2 articles that you can check out to read more, and you can share this with your family as well. So that's those are some of the things that were going on behind the scenes, these heated debates about slavery. And of course, at the crux of it was the taxation from the British. And I think that, in my mind, the Americans just wanted to be free. Just want to be free from under the king's neck, from under the king's rule. And they just wanted to be free. But that did not mean freedom from everyone. And eventually Congress decided to delete Thomas Jefferson's passage in reference to the slave revolts. You know how much trouble that would have caused. Now see, this is why, okay, please know your history, because what has happened is Americans, Black Americans, African Americans, people of African descent who live in this country have often been accused of being very docile and accused of not revolting and just taking whatever was handed to them or the slave masters did. And this is completely not true. Hence, history. You have got to know your own history. You are not a docile people. African Americans, my babies, my families, kings and queens who are watching me, you are not a docile people. No, you are not. Okay? You are not. You are not. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it again, but you're not a docile people. You fought. You revolted. Your ancestors fought. Your ancestors revolted. Why you think y'all got so much sauce now when y'all talking, and y'all got so much now when y'all, because you revolted. You revolted. Why you think it is now, somebody touch you and folks be ready to fight and they be ready? Because we were fighters. We were warriors. We were a great people. We are a great people even today. So don't let anybody, okay, y'all good. Y'all good. You understand? Okay, as long as you understand where I'm coming from. I'm just saying, because that lies there. You're having a history. I'm going to show you this. There are multiple. I'm not even going to name all the slave revolts because there are multiple ones throughout history. And so he decides, Thomas Jefferson, who of course himself owned over 600 slaves. Let us not go there. So we know where his interest was. He decided to drop this controversial line. He didn't want any mention in the declaration to slave revolts. What would that have done if he had mentioned slave revolts? What would that have done? What do you think how you think that would have sped up history? And people were afraid of that. And so they didn't put that in there about the slave revolts or about the British sort of wooing the slaves to fight and to stand against the Americans. And a lot of them did. They ditched and ran to freedom and were freed. And they fought against the Americans. So let's just be clear. Let's be clear. All right. What they did do and what they did leave was in the draft was an accusation that Jefferson leveled against the king, encouraging Native Americans to also fight in the war, whom they slurred as savages, to attack settlers at the British colonies and western frontier. So, okay, all right. So we're clear. We got all this history. It's a very interesting history. One of the most amazing speeches that happened around the 4th of July to talk about the celebration of this day, in commemoration of this day, was made by none other than Frederick Douglass, our hero, my hero. And he makes the speech in Rochester, New York on July the 5th, 1852. Susan B. Anthony is definitely a supporter of his, And also he has some other women's rights supporters, Elizabeth Cady Stanton. So there's a lot going on in this area in Rochester during this whole time when he has made this speech, and he has some amazing supporters. Ladies of the Anti-Slavery Society asked Douglas to come and to provide this oration for Independence Day. It's perfectly suited. Douglas is perfectly suited as an African American to make this speech. Remember, he's at that time he would have been he was a newspaper publisher, and he was effective in moving multitudes of people with his oration. He was, he was tall, dark, handsome. Just all of those things, and of course he had this booming voice. Okay, so yeah, he was Mandingo. Yeah, okay, you understand. So and for my husband who's watching, he wasn't bald, so you know I love you. But anyway, getting on back to this, y'all, because I play with y'all a lot. Douglas makes this amazing speech. Okay. And he says to them one question after another, and it's pretty amazing. So he begins this speech eloquently by reflecting back on the writers like Thomas Jefferson. But then he goes on to say, and in that speech he calls them your forefathers. And he says he calls them your forefathers, not ours, not African Americans, your forefathers. And then he says, fellow citizens, pardon me, allow me to ask, why am I called to speak upon today? What have I or those I represent to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and natural injustice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? This 4th of July is yours, not mine. You may rejoice. I must mourn. To drag a man in fetters into the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems where inhumane mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you mean, citizens, to mock me by asking me to speak today? Even the stoutest anti-slavery advocate must have quailed. They must have quailed. And he continued. He just did not let up. He goes on and he says, would you have me argue that man is entitled to liberty? That he is the rightful owner of his own body? You have already declared it. Must I argue the wrongfulness of slavery? To do so would be to make myself ridiculous and to offer an insult to your understanding. What am I to argue that is wrong? To make men brutes, to rob them of their liberty, to work without wages, to keep them ignorant of their relations to their fellow men, to beat them with sticks, to flay their flesh with the lash, to load their limbs with irons, to hunt them like dogs, to sell them at auction, to sunder their families, to knock out their teeth, to burn their flesh, to starve them into obedience and submission to their masters. Must I argue that the system thus marked with blood and stained with pollution is wrong? Right. I do not despair of this country, he goes on to say. There are forces in operation which must inevitably work the downfall of slavery. He says the Declaration of Independence, the great principles it contains, and the genius of American institutions, no doubt, because, like Whitman, he wished to lead America to make the people rage, weep, and hate the injustices that to him seem so clear, and to desire the extension of freedom to all Americans. And so today I ask you, are you really free? Douglas asked that question most years ago, over 100 years ago, right? If we were really free. And now we must also ask this same questions. Hunted by dogs. They were at the rallies just the other day. There were dogs, and even in the 60s, there were dogs that were sent out. As if this is a twisted fate in history. I think it was in Washington when many of the when there were protesters who were moved for the president's photo op. The policemen had bayonets. Bayonets. I mean, how far in history do you need to go back for us to have to relive some of the same things that are going on? Must I say their names? I feel like I feel like Frederick Douglass. Must I say the inhumane things that are going on, the redlining that's happening in the African American communities? Your house, when you buy a house in an African American community, is already devalued, and that is wrong. That is absolutely wrong. Same house, pick it up, put it in a predominantly white neighborhood, and it triples, quadruples in value exponentially, and continues to go up in value, while property values in African American neighborhoods continually are devalued and go down until gentrification. Schools in African American neighborhoods, so literacy, okay, is an issue. Homelessness, still the separation of African American children from their families, from their mothers and their fathers because of jail. Yes, the new Jim Crow. I mean, how do you send someone to jail for 460 days for a minor traffic violation or something very, very, very insignificant? Maybe you kill a man like George Floyd for potentially having a fake $20 bill, potentially now. What is going on? I mean, how much of this do we continue to have to perpetuate, but also continue to have to take? Are you really free? Are you really and completely free? The promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Who is that for? Are you free to drive down the street, to drive in your car, to sit in your home like Breonna Taylor and be killed and murdered by the police? Are you free? Are you free to drive down the street like Sandra Bland, and then all of a sudden you're pulled over because of a stoplight, in the next hour or so or a couple of hours you're dead? What country is this that we're living in? Are you really free? When people can just lay off without any, without any kind of notification, I mean, just close doors, receive money for COVID from billions of dollars, millions of dollars for COVID to keep the doors open, and then all of a sudden, boom. What? Are you really free? Are you really free? And is this promise for you of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Have you been able to receive the fullness of that promise? And if not, then what will you do? Will you stay here and continue to fight? Do you leave? Will you move and go home and repatriate to Africa? Do you want to continue to raise your children in this type of atmosphere? When will it change? What will happen? In this moment, we are in a struggle, another very similar struggle for America, for freedom in America, for the struggle of what America shall be beyond this moment, because I hate to even call his name, beyond the orange, the Mr. Chief who thinks he's chief of all. Yes. Beyond this moment, then what? What shall it be? It's your choice, and you must decide, because, beloved, I'm telling you, this is a moment of decision. This is an important moment of decision for you and for your family. Whether it's boycotting, like in the NAACP will be doing in a couple of days, was boycotting Facebook, whether it's boycotting, continuing to boycott businesses, continuing to march, continuing to show our light, or packing your bags and moving back to the motherland. All of these things are going on, but you need not go back to sleep. No matter what happens in the election in November, no matter what happens beyond this moment, beyond today, no matter what you wake up to tomorrow or tonight or later on this week, don't go back to sleep. Stay awake and stay vigilant, and know that the ancestors are here, that they're ushering in this moment of change, that they're ushering in this moment so that we can have a new future, so that we can go and we can move forward into the things that they are calling us to do. And for some of us, that does mean to go back home to Africa. And I know not everyone will go. I understand. I know that some will stay. And for some, that will mean to stay and be here, but that is still your choice. And you can only be the one to make that choice, beloved. I want the best for you. But I want you to consider what it means to be free. Some of us are asleep right now. We don't even know that we're not free. We don't even realize that we're not free. We live in our ice castles. We live in our realities with our families and do our thing. And we don't even know we're not free. We don't even realize everything that's going on around us. And we assume that it's not going to impact us. We assume somehow that we're shielded. And we're not. We are not. My answer is no, we're not free. No, we're not free. First, last to be hired, first to be fired. We're not free. NAFTA, we're not free. No health insurance, we are not free. Working 2-3 jobs, 80, 90, 100 hours a week. No, you're not free. This is modern day slavery. For penny wages, you're not free. Your babies can't walk down the street without, if you live in a, certain neighborhoods that are predominantly, white, you don't know if you're going to be followed when they go to the store. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if it's going to be a Karen calling the police on you for building and having a permit to build something in your neighborhood. You are watching every moment, trying to figure out, are the police, coming for whatever reason while you're driving in your car? They're just going to stop you for nothing. I mean, is it even safe to travel, even if you're free where you are? Is it safe to travel to other states that don't have freedom? I mean, this is like we're reverting backwards. But beloved, we're not going backwards. And I'm talking about this to you because I'm telling you, we're not going backwards. We're moving forward. But because we're in this energy here of movement and change, and because change is struggle, because change is not easy, it's like a gear, right? It's like y'all remember those old cars used to, or you know, I don't know, those of you who what is this, ski or something? I don't ski, but I'm saying, y'all remember them old cars, you know, and you have to move them gears to make them cars. It's like that. If you plow, you know, if you know, break up the land in the dirt to grow a garden, you plow, you know what that feels like. It's this tension that's there because history is tension and it's not easy. But I'm telling you, the ancestors are working. I'm telling you, our Jubilee is coming. Great things are happening. Amazing things are coming. The angels and the ancestors are with us. God is working and the ancestors are working on our behalf. The universe is conspiring with us. And when I see all of this foolishness that's going on, all this grandstanding that's going on with different leaders, from the White House to different places, you know, you got the White House on one end that's coming up against Black Lives Matter, that's coming, you know, in celebration and throwing up white lives symbol on and white nationalist symbols on the on Twitter. You've got all of these things that are happening, right? You got the protesters, Black Lives Matters protesters. You've got the statues coming down, and then you've got the white nationalists or KKK and white supremacists on the other hand protecting statues and coming out armed in you know, at the protest and setting things on fire, and all of this tension, all of this, and all the while God is working. All the while the Creator is moving. All of the while the ancestors are doing their labor and doing their work. And that work, beloved, is within us. That work is in you. That work is within us. It is within you. It is changing us. It is changing you. It is changing me. It is getting us focused for the future. It's getting us on task about what we should be doing and where we should be. It's getting us focused. It's saying, get your house in order. Get yourself together. Get yourself together. Clean up. Do what you got to do. Work on your relationships, your families. Get your families in order. Do what you got to do. There was so much movement during the time when Frederick Douglass was speaking, right? Harriet Tubman, when she was, you know, it was this moment in time, but freedom was coming, but it wasn't fast enough. So she was getting people safe to freedom into the North from the South, from out of slavery. This is a moment when the ancestors are speaking and they're saying, I can get you to a safe place. I can get you to a safe haven. Follow the Underground Railroad. Come back to Africa. Be safe and come back home. For other of us, it's saying, move out into the countries. Get out of the cities. Grow your own food. Prepare, beloved. Do what you must do. Woo! God is here. The ancestors are here. And they are here for you. Thank you so much, beloved. Thank you so much for Kings and Queens for joining this prophetic moment. The Queen speaks with a bit of history. Join us in your voice, your world, and join us below. Make your voices be heard. Share this video. Share it with someone you love. Share it with somebody, and make sure to leave a comment below and tell me what you are feeling in this moment, in this great, beautiful getting up morning. What are you feeling on this day? And what are you feeling today and this week and next week? Tell me the prophetic things as the Spirit begins to move and to speak to us and to rise within us. Share what the universe is saying to you. Let your voice be heard. All right. I love you guys. And I'm going to see you in the next video. Thank you so much, guys, for joining me for another episode of The Queen Speaks. I sure hope you learned something. I did. I always learn something when I do the research for these videos. I always kind of get inspired myself. So I appreciate you for being here. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe. Share this video with a friend. Share it with somebody who really gets it and who knows the season that we're in. Join me on Patreon, join me on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram as well. Drop over and head on over to my to my website at synolve.com and join my newsletter. Sign up so that we can continue this conversation. And for just $1 a day, you can support Black media. You can support me and the work I'm doing so that I can continue to put out great, amazing videos just like this one. And these prophetic messages and my prophetic voice can continue to be heard. I look forward to seeing you. Remember, your voice matters. Your voice matters. Your world matters. And you matter. I love you so much. See you in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.